up, y'all? It's Ty. We're going to be looking at Sporting Logically, his thoughts on the DeMar Derozan trade. Now, look, DeMar Derozan got traded, signed and traded to the Sacramento Kings here. You guys can see, I think it's a sign and trade. Yeah, 3-year deal. Harrison Barnes to San Antonio, Chris Duarte to 2 second-round picks and cash. Also do think there's a pick swap in here as well. Overall, I think it's somewhat cheap for DeRozan. I think DeRozan's very solid. However, where does DeRozan necessarily fit in this whole Sacramento scheme? That's a question I think that is important to answer as well. But I do like it's just for me. I think the Sacramento Kings running so much through Sabonis, so it'll be interesting to see where DeRozan fits in. We'll look at his takes and then give my thoughts on his specific takes.
DeMar Derozan is going to be a Sacramento King, a 3-team trade involving, of course, Chicago as well.
San Antonio's getting Harrison Barnes.
Well, as San Antonio gets DeRozan to Sacramento on a 3-year, $70+ million deal. Now, the trade itself isn't overwhelmingly important. Chicago gets a couple of second-round picks and Chris Duarte.
And a pick swap.
The Spurs are also involved here, and they get Harrison Barnes, who maybe they can flip for something. The real question here is whether this is a good idea for Sacramento, because basically the entire offseason there have been rumors about them going out to get not necessarily a star, but another piece.
They wanted that third person, that third semi-star, right? Because right now it was Fox, Sabonis, and then who? You know, Keegan Murray, like Harrison Barnes, like all these guys, like at the same type of level. Malik Monk. Now they got their third best player in DeMar Derozan.
Whether that be going back to the trade deadline when they tried to get Pascal Siakam and Toronto wanted Keegan Murray in exchange, that wasn't going to happen. We've heard rumors during the offseason about them trying to get Lauri Markkanen.
The thing for Markkanen is his price is steeper than DeRozan's.
That would have to involve Keegan Murray. And so they ultimately landed on a free agent that a lot of people forgot about in DeMar Derozan. And the plan here would be to add even more of an offensive punch, add another third, I guess you could say, star at this point. And
star is kind of crazy for DeRozan, but he's been consistently really good.
Add that to the group of Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, and try and push themselves towards the top of the Western Conference.
I'm not going to lie. I don't hate DeRozan. I think he's really solid. But one of the things I like most about DeRozan, and I don't know the specific stats on him, but DeRozan can take over games down the stretch. Well, guess what? Fox is one of the best clutch time players in the league too. So, I mean, again, there's only one ball to go around. But I just don't know. Like, DeMar DeRozan's not a great three-point shooter. He needs the ball in his hands quite a bit. And there's only one basketball. It goes back to my whole point of Sacramento. I just don't know. Offensively, they're already good. Is DeRozan's defensive prowess isn't there? I don't know.
Clearly, in a conference as stacked as the West
is
stacked. Can see Sacramento kind of start to fall down the standings here, even with a very good team, because they just weren't quite on that, contender level, and so they think that DeMar might be that piece. Now, before we get to the actual fit of DeRozan in Sacramento, I think it's important to point out that this isn't technically the last move that Sacramento could make. They own almost all of their future first-round picks, so if there did become a deal available down the road where they wanted to use some picks, use Keegan Murray, use Kevin Huerter's contract, even within this same offseason, they still have the opportunity.
Okay, but you don't have a bona fide like superstar. They got I would say Sabonis and Fox are top 25, on the verge of top 25 players in the league. DeRozan, you're probably looking at 35 to 40. That's just tough to do much with.
Do so.
They need a
Now, with DeMar in Sacramento, it's a little bit of a weird evaluation process because on one hand, I've never really been a big DeMar DeRozan fan.
I haven't either. But especially with this fit, Sacramento always, or at least 2 years ago, had one of the best offenses, maybe even the best in the NBA. It's like a pace and space type system, and DeRozan does not fit that.
In this situation in Sacramento, I'm not a huge fan, but in their situation, they didn't really have another way to add a player of this caliber. They didn't have the cap space to do it. And in a sign and trade scenario, your options are very limited, and DeMar was one of the last guys of his caliber in free agency. It is certainly a talent upgrade for them. Having DeMar DeRozan on your team.
DeMar DeRozan is more talented than Harrison Barnes, correct.
For the Kings,
yes,
is better than having Harrison Barnes and a couple of second-round picks. So just with that equation, this is a positive outcome for Sacramento. They didn't have another way to add someone like DeMar. Talent upgrade. But I've just never been a huge DeMar DeRozan fan. I wasn't even that big of a fan when Chicago gave him the deal that they did a handful of years ago. And by the way, he was awesome, especially for that first year in Chicago.
DeMar Derozan is extremely talented. He is. I mean, I don't think you can really even debate that.
Situation in Sacramento specifically.
His mid-range game is fantastic.
I can understand increasing the talent level. I can understand adding more offense. But his fit alongside De'Aaron Fox, who at the beginning of the year last year shot the ball extremely well from three.
He did. He was hot last year.
You guys together, I just don't love the fit.
You're missing out on the whole piece. Sabonis, man. Sabonis runs that offense. He runs that offense. And you can sit up here and say, well, Ty, like, DeRozan can do this, DeRozan can do that. Look, the Kings are a pace and space type offense, where their biggest pieces is like dribble handoff between Fox and Sabonis. And I just don't know where DeRozan fits.
We're going to love the fit of DeMar Derozan playing alongside another guy that is not an A to an A+ 3-point shooter, and De'Aaron Fox just is not that. And DeMar,
he's not, and neither is Sabonis. Sabonis actually shoots decent from three when he takes them, but he doesn't take them.
Has basically refused to shoot threes at all. And that's just going to be very difficult from a spacing perspective. Like, yes, at the end of games, he's going to be very good. He's very good in the mid-range, talent upgrade, all that stuff.
But guess who? Fox is very good at the end of games. So, again, there's one basketball to go around. Who's getting it?
You're getting smaller because you're not starting Harrison Barnes anymore. And I don't know that this is enough of an upgrade to really push yourself.
It's not. It's 100% not. And that's the big problem is it's like this trade might get him the 7 seed.
Towards the top of the conference. And that's why this is such a difficult trade and move
to
and
analyze.
signing to evaluate.
It is.
Because from a baseline perspective, the Kings are better today than they were yesterday because they added DeMar Derozan.
They are better.
But I don't think they're better by a significant margin. They're certainly not better by a significant margin relative to the rest of the conference.
Agreed.
But on the other hand, what else were they supposed to do? This was always the situation that they were in this offseason.
If I'm Sacramento, and you guys can disagree, let me know if you disagree. I don't know what the price of Lowry marketing is. I have no clue. But if you're trying to be a contender, that's the guy you go and get. That's the guy. Okay, DeMar Derozan, I'm not saying that he is that much better than Lowry marketing. But if you're looking at the Sacramento Kings, the pace and space type offense that they run, they spread the floor. They have Sabonis run a lot of actions. Lowry marketing's going to fit in that system seamlessly better than DeMar Derozan. He is. You know what? That's just the way it is. Again, I get the price is steeper. I get all that stuff. And they really didn't have to give up too much for DeRozan, so that's why they did it. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. And again, I get Fox isn't on the court at all times. Neither is Sabonis. DeRozan won't be either. And again, I don't mind it if only two of the guys are on the court at the same time. But all three of those, I just don't necessarily like that
need
fit.
Of a talent upgrade and kind of light on options, whether it be DeMar or whether it be Lowry Markkanen. And so you can't really fault them for adding someone that increases their talent, but you also have to say, how much does this really change what their season looks like? And so really, I think my evaluation of the DeMar Derozan signing or trade or whatever in Sacramento depends on what happens next. Because when you look at some of the contracts on this Kings roster, there's still a handful of them that are very movable. As I mentioned, if they really felt the need to go and get
it's like, okay, the rest of the team, in my opinion, doesn't matter if your top three guys, and I'll pull up the stats so I can read them to you. And I know Sabonis shot well from three last year. I'm pretty certain on that. But let's start with Domantas Sabonis, okay? I just read through his stats, and I'm looking at the 3-point line because, again, you've got to be able to knock down shots. Otherwise, teams are just going to load up on you, okay? Sabonis last season took 1 3 a game. Season before that, took 1 3 a game. Season before that, 1 3 a game. Now, he shot 37% the last 2 seasons, 38% last year. So it's good, but he doesn't shoot him. Okay, he doesn't shoot him. Now, let's go to De'Aaron Fox again. I do know he shot the ball way better last season. Is it an outlier? Again, that's probably to be determined. But De'Aaron Fox last year, end of the season shooting 37% from three, was way better. Again, like he mentioned earlier in the year. But that's, before that, there were 4 seasons prior to that. His best shooting year was 32%. Okay, that's not getting the job done. It's just not. Now, Fox does take a lot of them, so maybe if he can, up that a little bit. But your top 3 guys are not shooters. They're not spacers. And it just makes this spacing offense, which Harrison Barnes was a good shooter. Keegan Murray's a fantastic shooter. It just makes me a little bit skeptical. Like the rest of their roster right now is built to spread the court. And it has to be around those 3 guys. It has to be.
One to replace Keegan Murray with. They could trade him.
There's not many better guys out there that are going to fit this roster better than Keegan Murray. There's just not.
Kevin Huerter is still out there. There's still a structure here that makes a little bit of sense where they trade some picks and Kevin Huerter and they get Kyle Kuzma, for example.
Come on, dog. You want to get Kyle Kuzma in this squad. I don't get it. No. Kyle Kuzma is a 2 graded out as in the 2 percentile defensively. The 2nd percentile. Who is going to play defense for the Sacramento Kings? And I'm not saying Kevin Huerter's a good defender because he's not. That's my whole question, though. Like, you can't bring in Kuzma, who's a 2% defender, and expect great results.
Would round out their starting lineup nicely with Kuzma, Sabonis, Fox, DeRozan, and Murray.
Who's playing any defense on that squad? That's horrible.
And again, that's not necessarily beating the Nuggets or Minnesota or Dallas or anything.
That team's playing no defense.
Very good.
How do I get the subtitles off? Why are closed captions on?
Up, and maybe you can build off that. You still have Malik Monk off the bench, and so
Malik Monk, another non-defender.
I think I would like the deal more if they continue to add spacing with another guy in the starting lineup. And if
that's what I'm saying, add spacing with a guy like Larry Markkinen
for these picks, because this to me feels like a move where Sacramento realizes, okay, we're good. How do we get great? We talked about this. As soon as
this is the move to not get great.
Ended, made a video talking about how they had a talent issue and they needed to improve, and clearly that's their mindset. But just adding DeMar Derozan to me does not make them a contending team. And so I'm curious if there are other moves potentially in play for them. Even
but it's like, what is that next move? There's not anything else out there right now.
If it is on the Kyle Kuzma, Cam Johnson, kind of level, that I don't think would even put them into championship contention. But
can we get a guy that can play some defense, please?
Adding more players like that would make me like the DeRozan trade more. And so at the end of the day, this is one of the more difficult NBA additions to evaluate, because what makes this a success for Sacramento? What makes this
if they can get to the second round, that's a success. If you're making this type of deal, again, they're trying to get better. But for me, they're not a second round team with this current roster construction, and I don't know what they do. They got to get some more defense. Defense. You can say, oh, it's a talent aspect. Look at the best teams in the league, in the NBA. They have defense. You look at the Nuggets. Well, guess what? They lost KCP. Aaron Gordon defends. They're probably gonna. Christian Braun is gonna defend. He is gonna have to defend. The Nuggets had Derek Jones Jr. He can defend. You look at the Celtics. They got everybody that can defend. They need guys that can defend.
Good deal. What happens this season that you point to and say, adding DeMar DeRozan was a good move at this age in his career?
And you know what? Maybe I'll be wrong. But a team that's top 3 guys aren't great shooters, okay? And they don't play defense.
A 3-year deal that is certainly expensive, even though obviously the cap's going to continue to go up. It's not like
I don't even mind DeRozan's deal, ultimately. I just don't like the fit.
$20 million a year. Like, if they win a playoff series, if they make the Western Conference Finals,
I'd much like DeRozan in Los Angeles compared to this. You look at Los Angeles, and I don't know, let's say they'd have to give up D'Angelo Russell somehow. I don't know. But you got Austin Reeves, he can shoot. Braun can shoot. Go down the list. They got guys that can shoot. And Sacramento does, but Sabonis and Fox can't. That's the big red flag here. They can't. I can't say they can't, because they can shoot, but they don't. That's not like their best part of their game. You know what I'm saying? Like, Sabonis takes 1-3 a game. That's not a big part of his game. Fox, he takes a lot of them, but last year's an outlier as far as shooting.
This and say, okay, bringing in DeMar DeRozan was a good idea, because both of those outcomes feel unlikely to me in a conference that is absolutely loaded the way that the West is.
But at the same time, Sacramento had to do something. They had to. They were stuck in the middle ground, and they're trying to get out of there.
Worse than that, if you don't even win a playoff series, then what's the point of adding these guys in the first place? And I think the bottom line for them is just they were always in this kind of a spot in the offseason where they had their big breakout year 2 years ago. They're very good, but the conference is just much better than them. Like,
hey, let's not gas Sacramento and say they're very good. They're okay. They're a solid team, but they're not very good. Now they might be better than solid.
Even by adding DeMar DeRozan, they could still be a play-in team.
100%. If I had to predict it, I bet they finish it like the 7th seed
in the West. Like, that's how good the conference is.
I will say they're a team that even if they get the 7th seed and let's say they play the number 2, I don't know, throw anybody out there, Dallas Mavericks next year, they could beat Dallas. They could. But I would have said the same thing this year. Like, the Western Conference is pretty bad.
Apart from, trading Keegan Murray and some picks for who knows, whatever star is possibly out there.
Well, yeah, but what is out there?
There wasn't really an avenue for them to go up into contention.
Unless it's Lauri Markkanen. That would have been the one guy I'd have said, okay, this team could be something. I like Lauri Markkanen and his fit in Sacramento.
So it's hard to fault them for trying to take a baby step to get there by adding DeMar Derozan.
And they really didn't give up much. I don't hate this deal for the Kings. I just don't.
I would like the deal better if I liked the fit better. I'm just always going to be nervous about adding DeMar to a contending or semi-contending team that doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure around it from a spacing standpoint.
Agreed.
Or, like I said, the backcourt issues between him and Fox. And so ultimately, I just kind of land on like, sure, like they added DeMar Derozan. Like it is a solid.
That's kind of where I'm at with it, honestly. Like DeMar Derozan needs shooters around him. He does. And I just don't. The Kings have a lot of shooting. So offensively, I think it could work. But I think you got to stagger the minutes with like him, Fox, and Sabonis as much as possible. Because the other guys around him are going to be able to shoot. Herder, Keegan, Malik Monk. They've got shooters. But again, there's only one basketball. And bringing in all this offensive talent when you're already one of the best offensive teams in the league.
It's a 3-year deal. It's not that hard to get out of. They still have other assets. Even if it doesn't work, even if like halfway through the year they're bringing DeMar Derozan off the bench or something, just to try and split up the minutes between him and Fox, I would still just look at the deal and say, okay, they didn't really have to give up anything. They still have other options. They can still pivot out of this. And I didn't really have that high of expectations for the Kings in the first place. And again, I would just continue to keep an eye on them.
Let's calm down about DeMar Derozan off the bench. He is a very good basketball player. He's not coming off the bench. Let's settle down. Stagger the minutes more, sure, but he's not coming off the bench.
Let's
calm down.
Like even if, let's just say, for example, right, they were always looking at making one move, and it was like, oh, maybe we'll get DeMar, maybe we'll get Lauri Markkanen. If they had brought in Lauri Markkanen, obviously they would have had to give up a lot more. But if they brought in Lauri Markkanen and kept Keegan Murray, let's just say there was a
I don't know what that possibility is.
Possibility. They could do salaries and a ton of picks and get Lauri Markkanen. I would like that deal better for them than I would them bringing in DeMar Derozan because Markkanen fits better on the timeline.
Okay, but if you do that and Sacramento still doesn't make it out of the first round, well, then guess what? You're out of a bunch of picks. You're out of all these assets. And that's way different than, guess what? If they miss out on DeRozan, okay, well, you're barely out anything. Honestly, you're barely out anything. But I do think, let's say what a Harrison Barnes. I actually think Harrison Barnes is a solid player still. But let's say they lose out on Harrison Barnes or Keegan Murray and bring in Lauri Markkanen. I definitely like that fit better because you're 100% getting better. It's just a cost thing. What's worth it, what's not worth it.
Obviously a younger guy. I think overall he's just a better fit for them. And then you can continue to kind of build and grow with this group. Whereas this feels almost desperate, I guess. This almost feels like a last resort kind of measure for DeRozan as well. Because
I mean, maybe you could say last resort, but I don't want to say this is desperate. I don't want to go there. Because DeMar DeRozan's a good player. They didn't give up too much. I don't see desperation in this trade. I don't at all. Because they didn't give up anything. And DeRozan's a good player. I just don't know. I'll say this. DeMar DeRozan's fit with a lot of different teams I'm not going to know about. This one especially in Sacramento because, again, I just think they need some defense, man. I think they need some defense. Need like a 3-and-D guy. And DeMar DeRozan's good, but he's not that.
Because his free agency market completely dried up. But that, I guess, is the thing that makes me nervous for Sacramento is like overall talent upgrade, questions with the fit, didn't really give up that much. Does it really put them into the top tier of contenders in the Western Conference? All of that together makes me wonder kind of what was the point of the move. But it's at the end of the day, it's extremely hard to criticize
It's a low risk.
Sacramento for bringing in a guy like DeRozan who's very talented.
At such a low risk, low cost. I don't mind it. I just don't like the fit, but I don't mind it.
And they didn't have cap
space. Like if I'm a Kings fan, I'm indifferent on it. You know what? You bring in a really good player in DeMar DeRozan. The fit can always figure itself out. Guess what? Fox, hopefully you can shoot 38% from three. Sabonis, we might need to up those 1 3s a game to 3 or 4. You shoot good. Shoot them more.
In the first place,
it's
so
simple.
Being able to pull off a sign and trade like this is a win for them. We'll see what they continue to do. Like if there's more internal improvement from Keegan Murray and Fox and guys like that, like maybe they'll be able to.
I don't think they need to do another trade. I think their squad is fine. Their roster is fine. It's just going to be a matter of figuring out that fit.
To do something more with this. But right now I'm just kind of like, yeah, sure.
I'm indifferent on it too. I do like the fact for the Kings, they didn't really give up much. From the Bulls side of things, I mean, 2 second-round picks. I think they got a pick swap maybe in cash. I mean, look, For the Bulls, they're going young and they need to. So, again, it is what it is. Spurs, you get HB, Chris Duarte, I think. I don't know. I think HB is in there. Somehow the Spurs got in this. I don't necessarily know. But, I don't know. For the Kings, they got better. It's just a matter of how much better in a stacked Western Conference. It is a complicated trade. I don't hate this guy's take. It's very intriguing to me on how this ultimately is going to work. Because, again, there's one basketball. Sabonis has a high usage rate. He creates a lot of their offense. Fox is pretty ball dominant. DeRozan can be at times. It's only one basketball. And defensively, they're going to have to figure out a way to defend. Drop a like on the video, guys. Subscribe if you're new. As always, man, I love you guys. Have a blessed day.